Hello, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk. My name is Joni Rampola, one of the registered licensed dietitians with your Giant and Martins. And today we are doing a deep dive into Cobram Estates. And as you all know, I'm a big olive oil lover. And I have with me Leandra. Would you take a minute to introduce yourself and say your position? Because I'm excited that we go right to the top of the company to have our guest here.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you for inviting me here today. It's a great pleasure to talk about extra virgin olive oil. Yes, I'm one of the two CEOs of the company, and I've been with the company for about 25 years. Originally from Argentina, where I started as a researcher with olives, mainly as an agronomist. So coming from the technical background, until I moved to Australia in the early 2000s when the company was just starting producing the very first bit of oil. And now more recently, as we expanded in California, now here in the USA.
Excellent. Well, we're so glad that you're here with us, and I'm excited to learn from you because I feel like olive oil is such a great topic to do a deeper dive into. Those are my cooking classes. Know I always talk about it. So, for our listeners who may not know what makes Cobram Estate different, how are they different from other olive oil brands?
Well, I think that's one of the things that probably most consumers don't actually know or realize it. The vast majority of the brands that they may see in the supermarkets, they don't actually produce any olives, or they don't have any grows, or they don't have any mills where they mill the olives. In general terms, they buy olives and olive oil from a number of different companies that get the oil from a number of different mills from all around the world, end up being a big blend of things. The way that we do things is through what we call fully vertical integration. So that fancy expression means that we do everything from growing the trees in the nursery, having our own grows, harvesting the fruit, milling it in our own mills, and then we put it into the bottle and then we deliver it to the retailers. So they reach your pantry. So in
Yep, you froze. Well, that's not what we want. I'll give them a second.
quality of the product.
There you go. I hear you now. You froze a little bit. Can you repeat what you said? You froze for us.
Uh, yes, the sort of it really helped us to maximize the quality of the product and the traceability of the product all the way through.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing. And you're right. Like most companies aren't that. So I love the total integration. So I am in one of your olive groves. What surprises people most when they visit an olive grove or your olive grove?
I think in the case of our olive groves, it's the scale of it, how big they are, all the things that goes behind producing actually extra virgin olive oil, but also how sustainable an olive grove can be. Evergreen, perennial trees, permanent crops in the middle. And depending on which country you are, in Australia, you will see kangaroos jumping between the trees and emus. Here in California, more deers and some turkeys, wild turkeys around. So it's actually a very environmentally friendly crop. One of a few crops that is actually a net carbon sink as well. So it's great, not only great for us, but also great for the environment.
Yeah, so when looking at olive oil, I feel like people look at a label and they don't necessarily understand what they see. Can you start off by educating us and talking about like what is first cold pressed or first cold extracted?
Well, I'll go one step back about how the process goes. If you harvest the fruit, the olives directly from the tree, and you crush it or press it and produce oil without chemicals, without heat, the oils that are obtained are called virgin oils. Or in the old days, they used to be called first press or cold press, mainly because they were not using temperature. So it's all first press, first cold press, or virgin oils in general, all the same thing. They sort of some are a bit of older terms from the time that the paste of the olives used to be pressed, with hydraulic presses. Now we use a lot more modern technology, spinning it out quite, faster. But of those virgin oils, of those first cold press oils, extra virgin olive oil is the highest grade. Is the only oil of all the olive oils that actually deliver all the health attributes and all the flavor attributes that extra virgin olive oil or that olive oil is known for. So when a dietitian or a nutritionist refers to the great things behind olive oil, they're actually really talking about the great things behind extra virgin olive oil. Everything else that is not extra virgin is most likely a more treated, more processed product. Essentially, if the olives that were harvested from the tree or from the ground were already rotten, took too long to mill, the oil that is produced is of lower quality. Sometimes if the quality is too bad, they have to be refined. They have to go through a treatment with temperatures and chemicals similar to any other seed oil. And through that process, they obtain refined olive oil, which normally you will see on the shelves sold as olive oil or extra light olive oil or pure olive oil. Anything that doesn't say extra virgin olive oil is most likely a more processed form of olive oil.
That's so interesting. And I love that. And I'm sure our customers have heard me talk some version of that, but you say it's so much nicer. Another question that I feel customers ask me is what about high heat cooking olive oil? Is it something that you destroy it if you cook at high heat? And what is
Well,
high heat?
it's actually quite the opposite. Not only that you can cook with extra virgin olive oil, but you should cook with extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is, in fact, one of the most stable oils under heat, under continuous heat. Um, Probably consumers may have heard sometimes the term of smoke point. And there's an issue with smoke point is that it's not a great measure to actually evaluate the stability of oil under heat for a long period of time, which is what we do with cooking. And particularly, it's very difficult to evaluate virgin oils under that. The reason why extra virgin olive oil is so stable is given the fatty acid profile and also the presence of antioxidants. And we could talk a little bit more later on. But that allows the oils to be really stable, a lot more stable than seed oils before they start forming some of those normally called secondary products of oxidation that happens when you heat oils for extended period of time. And the other great thing with cooking with extra virgin olive oil is that it transfers a lot of the good things in extra virgin olive oil into the food that you're cooking with. For example, if you're frying a chicken schnitzel with extra virgin olive oil, what is proven is that in that process of frying, the food and the media reach a balance where now a fair bit of the fat present in the chicken migrates into the oil, and a fair bit of the oil migrates into the schnitzel, into the chicken. Hence, you're going to have a chicken schnitzel with a lot healthier fatty acid profile and also with a higher level of antioxidants. Of course, during the heating process, you're always gradually destroying any oil, but olive oil actually withstand that for a much longer period of time.
Oh, so interesting. I love that. So you're touching on health benefits or nutrition. So I want to go down that route first. So what makes olive oil unique compared to other fats, thinking about nutrition?
It is certainly unique. I always like to quote Dr. Mary Flynn, a famous nutritionist, from Brown University, that done a lot of research behind introducing extra virgin olive oil as part of the diet, particularly to manage certain type of disease. And she says always that when it comes down to scientifically proven evidence, there's no other food that comes even close to extra virgin olive oil that has the amount of evidence to justify how much they influence in preventing and managing most common chronic diseases, from diabetes to heart health to mental health. So it's actually truly a unique product. And why? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the doctors started realizing that having extra virgin olive oil in the diet was so good, first thing that they thought, okay, this has to do with the fatty acid profile. That has to be with the amount of monounsaturated fats that is in there, and combined with a little bit of polyunsaturated and a little bit of saturated, but fundamentally monounsaturated fat. Then, with more evidence, they realized that, okay, that was a good point, but it wasn't the main point. So, and how they realized, well, when they started comparing it versus refined olive oil, for example, they have exactly the same fatty acid profile. They were still seeing that people with consuming extra virgin olive oil were getting a lot more health benefits than the ones consuming refined olive oil. So I say, okay, that means that this is a really good matrix, but must be something else. And over the past 20 years, they started discovering what was that something else. And the reality is a wide range of different phytonutrients, including things like phytosterols that probably some of you are aware in terms of the reduction of cholesterol absorption, but also a bit of a wide range of antioxidants, natural antioxidants like alpha tocopherols or vitamin E, squalene, and fundamentally a group of antioxidants that are called biophenols, which are about 23, 24 different substances present in olive oil. They all have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Probably you all heard about antioxidants plenty of times, with blueberries, strawberries, green tea. What makes the antioxidants in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, so special or so efficient is the fact that they are fat soluble. The vast majority of the other antioxidants that we talk about are water soluble. And in our bodies, what we need to protect largely from oxidation are fat tissue, our fat wall cells, the cholesterol in our blood, LDL or HDL is very important if they oxidize or if they don't, or our brain tissue. They're all largely fatty tissues. And so fat soluble antioxidants end up becoming a lot more efficient to do that job.
I never thought of it that way. That was amazing. I love that. Can you walk us through the process, like to create that high quality olive oil from tree to bottle? Like what does that take?
Well, I think it goes back to what I mentioned before about what makes our company rather unique, at least in larger scale, which is that vertical integration. So the key steps to produce a high quality olive oil is to, first of all, grow a healthy tree and a healthy fruit. Um, then to pick that fruit at the right time and deliver it really quickly to the mill so it can be actually crushed. Or essentially, you smash the olives through a grid, form almost like a tapenade, mix it for about an hour where that oil gets infused with all the great things that are present in that olive, and then you extract the oil really quickly with good technology. And then another step that is actually very important is to store the oil properly as well. You want to pick it at the right time, lock it in, and then you store it in stainless steel tanks under nitrogen, temperature control, all things that are actually helping to preserve the oil and preserve all those antioxidants and phytonutrients that we talk about until you just bottle it and then deliver it quickly to the supermarket. So it reaches your pantry as fresh as possible. It's a bit of an interesting thing with extra virgin olive oil is the concept of freshness. Normally, most of us don't think about a pantry staple in terms of freshness. But yes, extra virgin olive oil is one of those unique foods that, although they are in your pantry, freshness really matters. So the fresher that the oil is, the most likely that it's going to taste better and have a lot more of those healthy components that we have been talking about.
Excellent. So you mentioned taste. If olive oil had tasting notes like wine does, right, what would our audience be looking for?
It actually does have tasting notes. There's tasting wheels. There's a whole world around olive oil tasting. Tasting of extra virgin olive oil is a very important analysis, a very important parameter. One of the definition of extra virgin olive oil, it has to have no tasting defects. So it has to be flawless. And what it means to be flawless, well, the first thing is that we do as tasters is we smell it. And in the smell, good extra virgin olive oil needs to remind you of anything that smells fresh. Fresh cut grass, a fresh vegetable, could be tomatoes, could be lettuce, could be rocket salad or arugula, or fresh fruit. can smell sometimes like apple or banana or peaches. So anything that is a fresh smell is a good thing. If what you smell is not fresh, if it's something that is either fermented or humid or old, like if it smells like blue cheese or salami, baby vomit, horse poo, all those sort of things can actually be descriptors of bad extra virgin olive oil or bad olive oil. It wouldn't be extra virgin at that point. And the other thing that a taster does is after smelling is tasting it. So the mouth feel is also very, very important. Good extra virgin olive oil should leave your mouth feel very clean. They won't taste actually oily at all. And they will leave you some sensations of bitterness and pungency. The bitterness, you feel it as a bit of a drying sensation on the side of your tongue, a bit like having a cup of black tea with no sugar. And the pungency is a bit of a peppery feeling that you feel a tingling sensation on the back of your throat. Those are actually the antioxidants in olive oil that generate all those sort of almost chili-like feelings. If the oil, on the contrary, leaves your mouth with a very fatty, oily, waxy feeling, they're actually indicators that it is not a good olive oil and unlikely to be extra virgin.
Very interesting. So for our customers that may want to go to the store and try some olive oil, right? Um, how would they store it? And then how long does it last after it's opened?
I think the advice is not just for extra virgin olive oil, will be for any oil that you buy, and regardless. It would be to essentially keep those oils into a cool, dark place, not necessarily next to your stove as you're cooking, because the heat and the light are two enemies for all oils, including extra virgin olive oil. They tend to accelerate the oxidation of the oil and the degradation of it. So try to keep it in a cool, dark place. And what we normally advise is to buy whatever you're going to use within 4 to 6 weeks. Any oil after being opened from the bottle and reducing the level, exposing more surface to the air, tends to deteriorate a bit faster. So in the case of extra virgin olive oil, to have all the best experiences from the flavor perspective and the health perspective, ideally you want to use your oil within 4 to 6 weeks. So essentially, if your family uses enough olive oil to grant a 750 ml bottle or a 3 liter tin or like a half a gallon tin, well, you buy whatever you know that it's going to be used, within that period of time, just to guarantee that you maintain the freshness, because the oil is a lot better preserved in our stainless steel tanks and then into the bottle when it's fully bottled with a nitrogen cap on the headspace than once it's open in your house.
Excellent. That's good to know. So there's a lot of discrepancy in prices among olive oil, some relatively inexpensive, some more expensive. Does the cost of the olive oil determine the quality?
Mm, not necessarily. I'll explain why. Well, if you see something that is extremely cheap, well, be suspicious for sure, because producing good extra virgin olive oil is not a cheap process. Obviously, there's a long leading time for the trees to be harvested. It's a much more complex crop than an annual crop. But also sometimes extremely expensive oils on this flip side, although they could be great oils to start with, end up being too boutiquey, and sometimes they sit on those shelves for too long, and they could actually be already old or rancid and may have been good to start with, but unless you get access to them quickly and in a fresh way, you may be disappointed with the quality that you get. So usually midpoint of an oil that tends to turn around and move a lot or more tends to be the best guarantee of achieving what you want in terms of quality. But always trust the producer and get to know the producer is the best way of getting a good quality product.
Excellent. So this is going to be my last question to you before I open it up to our customer questions. But if everybody in our audience made one small change with olive oil starting tomorrow, what would you suggest?
Use it more. And I'll cover this to get all the health benefits that are known that we talk about and everything else. The amount of olive oil that is recommended by science is around 2 to 3 tablespoons per day, and that's quite simply, when we think about 1 tablespoon per serve of veggies or salads that we should actually have in our diet, and that's normally the best way of incorporating it, either by dressing those salads or using it to stir fry them or bake them, like in any different shape or form, incorporating it throughout the diet in combination with different vegetables is when we get the maximum amount of the benefits. And we didn't touch on that, but there's a whole new science that is growing a lot that is based on the interaction of the different foods. When you are actually cooking certain vegetables, in particular with extra virgin olive oil, there seems to be two phenomena occurring. The first one is the fact that olive oil will make some of the important phytonutrients in those vegetables, be that lycopene with tomatoes or glucosinates in the case of broccoli, etc., a lot more soluble, and our bodies will tend to absorb a higher quantity. But also, there's a fair bit of interaction between the different antioxidants, and they recombine to generate an even newer generation of different antioxidants that slightly differ of the originals. And our body seems to enjoy a lot more that larger diversity of different antioxidants that, again, are likely to be mostly fat soluble.
I love the synergy. Yes, thank you. Now I'm going to go to customer questions. Is there a nutrition difference if grounded at different stages of growth?
In terms of, I assume that this question about the stage of growth in terms of the age of the trees. I'm not sure.
I
Uh,
assume the olive, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, uh, if we looked at it, if it's in terms of the age of the trees, because sometimes with grapes they talk about the older grapes will produce better wine. In the case of olive oil, it doesn't really matter. The quality of the oil is very similar to young trees or older trees. And if it's in time of related to the time of harvesting, so if it happens very early in the season, yes, earlier harvest oils that tend to be greener, tend to be a bit more robust with more pepperiness, with more bitterness, tend to have a higher degree of antioxidants, and because of that, they tend to have more health benefit.
Are polyphenols in olive oil pretty much the same, or does where the olives are grown make a difference?
Really interesting question. Very, very interesting questions. Yes, polyphenols or biophenols in olive oil are strongly influenced by three things: the variety or the cultivar, the place where it's grown, and that's mainly due to the environmental conditions, the climate, and also when they're harvested. So some varieties, for example, Coratina, just to mention one, tend to naturally have very high level of antioxidants. And other varieties naturally tend to have lower level of antioxidants, like Arbequina. For example, that means that Coratina will be almost like a Zinfandel of the wines, while the Arbequina would be almost like a Pinot Grigio of the wine. So very, very different from the varietal point of view. But normally colder climates, for example, here in Northern California, tends to produce oils with more antioxidants than, let's say, Southern California that has a much warmer climate that tend to produce milder oils with less antioxidants. And then we have what we mentioned before: the earlier that you harvest, the more antioxidant that you have in the oil as well.
Excellent.
But the profile of antioxidants, so the different type of antioxidants, are always more or less the same. It just changes in terms of the quantity and the relative proportion of the different ones.
Okay. What color olives are used to make oil?
Another very interesting question too. All olives of all cultivars, they start green and they finish black. So there's no cultivars for black olives and there's no cultivars for green olives. All the olives start green and finish black. Normally, for most varieties, they tend to reach the maximum oil content when they are starting to change color. So when they're in that period of changing color, about 30 to 50% of a fruit changing color, that's when they reach the maximum oil content. From the quality perspective, you would like to really harvest the fruit at that time or a little bit earlier. That's when you get the absolutely best oils, but more robust, more peppery, greener tones. If you want milder, sweeter oils, you tend to pick from that moment a little bit later. So from when almost all or until almost all the fruit is black. If you let the fruit turn completely black for too long, the fruit will start dropping in the ground and the quality of the oil will gradually deteriorate. You will get a higher yield, but the quality will be low.
A customer is asking, where is Cobram Estate located and how many acres of olive plants do you have?
Well, we operate in two countries. We strongly believe in local production. We strongly believe in the importance of delivering fresh oil, and to do that, it's good to produce the oil locally where you're going to be selling it. So we started many years ago in Australia. We grow a lot of olives in Australia, where we have about 18,000 acres of olives. It's a huge, or three different grows, so it's a huge expansion. And we sell a lot of, most of that oil, we sell that in the Australian market. And then we moved to the US as well, where we started growing in Central California. Most of our operations are located around the town of Woodland, which is just outside Sacramento. Beautiful area, great area to grow olives. And here in California right now, we have about 3,000 acres, and we continue to plant more. We work a fair bit with some smaller growers that also bring the fruit to us, and we mill it as well to add to our blends. But I think California has a unique climate, really, really great climate to produce olives and high quality extra virgin olive oil.
Can you drink extra virgin olive oil as a shot to make sure you consume 2 to 3 teaspoons per day?
You definitely can, but I feel that as much as extra virgin olive oil is a great product, probably one of the most important roles that it plays in the famous Mediterranean diet is to help us actually eat and enjoy more vegetables, more salads. And because of that, we will probably get a lot more of the combined benefits. So there's a significant amount of evidence behind extra virgin olive oil, but the evidence behind the use of olive oil in the context of eating more vegetables, eating more salad, is 10 times bigger. So my advice as a non-nutritionist, it would be just to definitely try to use it as much as you can in the context of incorporating more vegetables and salads to your diet.
And I'll agree with that. I second that. A customer is asking, should I always look for single source extra virgin olive oil and avoid the blends?
Um, um, Not necessarily. The blends. I think it's important to look for, if you can, if you know the producer and know where the olives are coming from. I think that the advice is usually local is better. So because it's easier that oil will reach the shelves at a faster pace, and because of that, you're going to have access to a fresher oil, especially if you know that it's from the harvest just finished. Remember, in the Northern Hemisphere, the harvest of olives takes place between October and November. So now you need to be looking for harvest 2025, which is the harvest that's just passed. It's only 3 or 4 months old. That would be the freshest oil. Don't go for harvest 2024. And if the bottle doesn't say harvest date, start to be suspicious because that probably, yes, is a blend of all the oils into there. That's where the blend side is not great. You could be blending different varieties and create a lot more balanced oil sometimes. So I think that knowing where the olives come from is very important. But that could be definitely a blend of varietals as opposed to a blend of oils from different years, or blends from different locations.
All right. How many years will a tree produce olives?
Um, Well, there are still olives out there that have more than 2,000 years, and they're still producing some olives. So it's
Wow.
certainly one of the most ancient horticultural crops in the world. I actually been in Jerusalem, and when you go to the Gethsemane Gardens, the olives that they are still the olives that supposedly they are since the Jesus Christ Last Supper. So it's actually quite amazing. And funny enough, one of those varieties are still commercially grown. So um, olives are the further thing that you have from anything that is genetically modified. The varieties that we're using now are exactly the same varieties that were grown 2,000 years ago. It's a very, very stable tree, very resilient. It takes about 3 years from planting for the tree to start producing some olives. In the intensive way that we normally grow olives nowadays, it takes about 7, 8 years to reach maximum production. and then remains productive for a long, long time. In grows where we fully mechanize the harvest, the length of that life is usually around 40, 50 years, and then you tend to replant the trees or restart with heavy prunings. But certainly in isolated way, the olive trees can live for thousands of years.
All right, we have just a couple more questions and we're at time, so I want to kind of go through these quickly if that's okay. Does Cobram offer organic olive oil? And if so, is it a better product?
We don't do offer organic oil. A bit of a longer explanation for this, but I'll try to make it short. Olive oil production uses very little to no chemicals at all. In terms of in the form of pesticides and fungicides, because it's very resilient tree. The main reason why we don't do it is through the way that we apply the fertilizers and to be able to do it through the fertigation, and that allows us to produce more production at a cheaper price and at the same time reducing our carbon footprint. People would sometimes not think about this, but when you're producing organically and you're moving a significant amount of organic matter to fertilize olives and then also to mechanically control weeds with burning more fuel, you actually are doing potentially more damage to the environment than doing it in a more conventional way in what is called now more like regenerative ag type of thing. So when you're doing agriculture, clearly thinking in the overall context of the environment as opposed to just focusing on one very narrow aspect of, for example, not using a certain chemical.
All right, last question for you. How many olives does it take to make a tablespoon of olive oil? And can eating that many olives give you the same benefit?
Uh, Great question. Absolutely great question. It takes about, I have to do some conversion, some metric conversion, but it takes about 15 pounds of olives to produce a liter of oil, which would mean it takes about 50 pounds of olives to produce 1 gallon. Now that's more or less the ratio that is easier to remember. So it's about the ratio is about so a tablespoon is 15 meals. So it would take about
A lot.
100 grams of olives, so like 50 olives, more or less 50 olives. And what was the other part? If eating the olives, no. Actually, this is an amazing fact. Inside the olive, there's actually only two type of antioxidants when we talk about biophenols, oleuropein and lixtroside, only two. But when you crush the olives and you're mixing it during the extraction process, the enzymes that are naturally present in the fruit start working on those antioxidants to break them down and transform it into that wide range of 20 something different antioxidants. And fun enough, making some of them fat soluble. The oleuropein per se is actually water soluble. So when there's hardly any oleuropein left in the olive oil, but there's plenty of others that come out of that oleuropein during the process. It's a very unique uh, conversion during the process.
I feel like you very much enlightened us. We love that you spent this time with us. And thank you from everybody getting comments here that this was so great. We appreciate you. Very interesting class. Thank you. Yeah, customers love this. So thank you, Leandra, for spending this time with us. We
No,
greatly
thank you, Jordan,
appreciate
for
you.
inviting. Thank you, Jordan, for inviting me. Obviously, we love olive oil. We love extra virgin olive oil, and could talk this for a long, long time.
Excellent. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We're so
Same for you.
appreciative for your knowledge. Bye.
Bye bye.